Alright, tariffs. Tariffs are taxes on imports. Taxes are for citizens and American businesses and anybody operating within our borders. Outside of our borders, stuff trying to come in, we might put tariffs or taxes on those things we're bringing into the country to be sold by a foreign business or government. There's a variety of tariffs. One of them is a revenue tariff. That's just cost of doing business. They're usually very small, but we put it on it. We put those tariffs on just so we make a little bit of money. Just like in America, we tax cigarettes like crazy. Like in Taiwan, a pack of cigarettes may only cost about $2, and over here it might cost $6. That's because of taxes. And oil, we put a little bit of tariff on oil that comes from outside the country. Not the oil that we have inside the country. On the outside of the country, the oil companies trying to sell to us from abroad, we put tariffs on, taxes. And it's just to make money. Revenue means making money. There's also protective tariffs. We put a tax on those if we're trying to protect our own producers and sellers from competition from abroad. So, for example, oranges. We grow a lot of oranges here in America, but a lot of oranges are grown in other places. So we put higher taxes, tariffs, on some of these oranges from other countries to make it harder for them to compete with their own growers so we can maintain our own growers' jobs and businesses. So it's used as a government to, yeah, we make money from it. The government makes money from it. But mostly these taxes are higher to try to like scare them away a little bit or make them have to prove that their oranges are better quality than ours to make it worth the higher price because they're going to have to charge more since we're adding to their expenses. Then there's quotas. Quotas is another way that we can try to restrict trade and protect our producers and our businesses here in America. So instead of adding on a tariff or in addition to a tariff, we can put a quota. So we restrict the number of those goods. So maybe instead of putting a tax on how many cars can be sold from, say, Toyota, we might just say you can only sell 500,000 per year. And after that, you can't sell anymore. At that point, our people will just have to buy American at that point. So that's a quota restriction on the number, not the price that can be brought into the country. Another example is sugar beets. We put a quota on how many sugar beets can be sold into America from foreign countries per year, and that protects our own sugar beet farmers to make sure that they can compete and survive in the country and not have to compete against other countries that can maybe make it cheaper or grow it cheaper, more efficiently. Then there's an embargo. Now this is kind of a last result, and this is usually something we use against someone who's kind of an enemy. It's a complete restriction placed on imports or exports from a country. So right now America has an embargo on a number of countries, but one of the most famous ones is Cuba. We do not let anything come in and out of Cuba to Americans. Americans can't sell to Cubans. Cubans, we don't allow them to sell to us. Those who are cigar smokers, who love Cuban cigars, if you're an American citizen, it is illegal to own them and to smoke them and to sell them because we have an embargo on anything from Cuba. International trade agreements. So we talked about a lot of these different restrictions that we make. Now embargoes tend to be targeted on single countries, but quotas and import tariffs, sometimes it's not just one country we're trying to defend ourselves, and we may not know if another country might jump in at some point. So we put tariffs and quotas on just all foreigners, not just one particular country. Maybe it's any foreign product that we want to have a restriction on, we might put a quota and or tariff. But maybe there's a friend of ours that we don't want to hurt. Like America has an interest in making sure Mexico, their economy is as stable as possible. Now, there's only so much we can do for Mexico, but we want to make sure that they're not so. We want to make sure that their farmers, their businesses can do well because we have an interest in having a strong neighbor. That increases our own security. So we made the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, to include Mexico and Canada, so they get around those restrictions and quotas. Sugar beet farmers. Again, we're trying to protect our own sugar beet farmers, but we don't want to hurt the Mexican farmers. So, as a result of NAFTA, they get an exemption. They can sell as much sugar as they want to us. We don't mind competing with them without restriction. It's just the rest of the world. So we make these trade agreements like NAFTA. And Canada is involved also to get rid of tariffs and barriers, anything that might hurt trade between the members of this trade agreement. Other examples are the European Union. They're trying to, that's a number of countries that have come together and they all use the same money. Well, kind of except for Europe or England. They're kind of being their own thing a little bit, but at the same time still part of the European Union, and they use the euro. So they got rid of all their currencies. The Swiss no longer use francs anymore, like we had in an earlier example back in the 40s and 1940s through 70s. Now almost all of Western Europe uses the euro, and that's what they use for their money because they're trying to have one market for all these different countries so that they all are economically stable and strong together. And it's worked. The euro is more valuable than the dollar, and it has been for quite some time because united, that's a lot of power in all those European countries. There's also the World Trade Organization, which is the world's largest international trade agreement with 140 members, again, trying to break down barriers among the elite countries. That's a much bigger organization, so there's a lot more controversial, and they maybe don't accomplish quite as much unity as the EU and NAFTA does.